Everyone is looking for a story worth living. Everyone. The human heart is made for an epic story. And when you give up looking for that story, you give up living. We set out to find a story worth telling, to tell a story about story. Have you noticed? Story is the way we figure things out, the way we all make sense of things.
Oh! What was that? Well, so we were going along and go off the berm and then suddenly have this experience of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to go off a jump. I don't know how to jump. I'm watching my front tire just kind of turn in the air going like, no, this is all wrong. This is all wrong.
Story's how we all make sense of our lives.
Our life and our story is somehow not only inscribed in terms of how we relate to others, but as you think about your whole life, even your ability to remember facts. I mean, neurologically, we understand more so today that you don't just remember cognitively, you actually remember narratively. So our whole life, from the beginning to the end, is all about story.
It's all about the story. And like most stories, this one didn't always go the way we planned. But that's pretty true to life. And anyways, we want to talk about story, so we need a good story to tell. Back in 2004, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman put adventure riding on the map when they rode BMW GS motorcycles all the way around the world. They made a series about their trip called Long Way Round. It's funny how a story can get you dreaming.
So watching those films, watching Ewan and Charlie drive across the face of the planet, inspired us to go out and learn how to drive motorcycles, and then always had this dream of maybe one day going on a trip like they did. Obviously, we weren't going to go around the world, but we were ready to.
So the trip for me started in December in the garage, huddled in a circle with the butane heater on, smoking cigars, and we began talking about trip ideas. I had heard snippets of different ideas that were going around, but that was the first time where the notion of doing a motorcycle trip came into my head.
It stresses me out. Watching Charlie and Ewan prepare for their trip around the world, it's crazy.
Yeah. Just radio you and we'll meet.
There was one little hitch, though. None of us owned one of these bikes, and 5 of us have never ridden off-road.
So going into the trip, my experiences were on 500cc and 600cc with about an cumulative maybe 10 hours of motorcycling experience, 15 if I'm generous. I am wildly unprepared for this.
I'm a counselor, an author by trade. 3 years before Ewan and Charlie's trip, I wrote a book called Wild at Heart, about a man's longing for adventure and battle, for something epic. That book reached millions of readers all over the world. I think it tapped into some core desires, not just in men, but in women too. My sons are also writers. They run an online magazine called And Sons. This trip was actually their idea. They're a lot of fun to be around, and they never say no to an adventure. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I suppose.
Oh, yeah!
Dan Allender is a longtime friend. He's an author, too, and a psychologist. A really insightful guy. And a bit crazy. He looks like he dropped in out of Lord of the Rings. Dan and I spend our days helping people understand their story. Like the rest of us, Dan has no backcountry experience on big bikes like these. That's why we invited our buddy John along. He's done a few trips like this before.
So I started riding bikes when I was about 10. I think it was probably maybe my 10th or 11th birthday that my parents bought me a little dirt bike. And it was a big part of my childhood, but sort of died away once I got married and kids and work and all that. And then about 5-6 years ago, bought a motorcycle. Bought a BMW 650GS, and yeah, had just some wonderful times riding that around. And particularly of the adventure and the dirt and sort of trying to push things a little bit to the extreme of what they're capable of doing.
Our culture has lost touch with what adventure even is. In this day of Red Bull, over-the-top adventure videos, guys doing triple backflips on motorcycles, we've lost touch with reality. I saw a video of a guy take his dirt bike out on the ocean and surf a wave on it. For the rest of the human race, it's like riding your bicycle to the moon. It's never gonna happen. Adventure is chasing a dream. Adventure is taking on something you've never, ever done before.
I've had the privilege of having some pretty epic trips to Israel, to Istanbul, to the South Island of New Zealand. I've had the privilege of doing a lot of travel. But I can honestly say that I have never in my life attempted anything as wild, foolish, beautiful, and bold as this trip. In terms of the skill required, in terms of the drama and the danger, the beauty, the reality is I've never done anything like this in my life.
Most good stories start out like this. Ordinary people getting swept up into something extraordinary. We're doing 1,000 miles in 8 days. River crossings, gravel trails, mountain passes. Story isn't so much something that you write, it's something that finds you.
Can you hear them calling? Oh, the clearest winds blow. We're playing hard for keeps, we've got visions and dreams. You gotta get up, it's time to go. Heading north for the border, where my heart grows tenfold. With the first sign of light, we'll be well out of sight. I'll be the first to hit the road. Don't you forget what you've come for. Don't you forget where you've been. This road is long, but if you hold on, you'll take you back home.
We went out looking for a good story to to talk about story. But I'll be honest, I wasn't so sure about this trip. I had a couple serious motorcycle crashes when I was young, and I just walked away from all of that. But armchair adventures are easy to embrace. There were so many hurdles to this really happening, I just kind of let it unfold, thinking it would stall out before we found ourselves in way over our heads. First, we weren't going anywhere until we got our hands on some bikes. The guys figured if we could track down used bikes and fix them up, we could sell them after the trip and fund our adventure.
I think there was a couple of months there where I knew every single motorcycle, every single F800 that was for sale in the continental US. Constantly looking, constantly trying to find a bike that would fit what we needed. Well, the two bikes in Washington have arrived. It's almost 10 o'clock at night.
And we're expecting a car carrier when this semi pulls up. They're two guys who don't speak a lot of English, but are really enthusiastic about motorcycles. And we can only hear them in the back of the truck, speaking to one another in Russian, and suddenly the headlights come on of a GS bike and the engine start. It looked like they were unloading an X-Wing fighter. And so the guy's turning to leave, and he just looks at Sam and goes, "Nice bikes." And they took off.
One by one, the bikes started rolling in from Arizona, Utah, Seattle. BMW F800GS, Gelandestrasse, meaning off-road, on-road.
The GS bikes are amazing machines. I mean, the German engineering that goes into them, what you have is you have one of the best street touring bikes combined with one of the most capable off-road adventure bikes in one package. Now, the bikes themselves weigh almost 500 pounds, and then you add in all the gear that we have, and the panniers and our dry bags. You know, we're probably pushing 600 pounds on these bikes without the rider. So it's not like a dirt bike where if you drop it, you can just sort of pick it back up and jump back on. I mean, when we dropped these bikes, almost every time it took 2, if not 3 of us to pick them up. 3, 1 and 2 and 3!
Yeah, he's going inside the spring on the pegs. You notice that these guys have given me the highly technical pieces of the gear here to take care of. You know, you got to go to a pro when you need something done well.
We don't have any opportunities really to work on motorcycles or to learn how to install a luggage rack or to put on these incredible panniers. And suddenly we're in this garage with racks of tools. And who has the size 13? And I'm looking at the things I have and go, this could be what he's looking for.
Next thing I know, we've got 6 motorcycles in the garage, outfitted for the backcountry. This thing starts feeling really legit. But there was still that little detail about how 5 of us have never ridden off-road before, and I'm wondering if we're setting ourselves up for a serious accident.
You know, before things really got rolling, Dan was the one to come and say, if I'm gonna be riding a motorcycle off-road, I'm gonna do an off-road school. And it made the rest of us pause and go, absolutely, what were we thinking? Like, of course we need to do a school. We have no idea how to ride on dirt, let alone how to handle these bikes and do what they're meant to do.
And then when I see something technical coming up, I change my stance. I get on the balls of my feet and I scooch down to be more of a shock absorber on the bike. And now I'm in my attack stance.
Rawhide was crucial for me. I doubled my riding hours in the first day. As far as riding skill goes, it was a world of a difference going in and coming out. And confidence, enjoyment, skill, even the experience of what it's like to drop a motorcycle. Even just that was crucial.
Yeah, the first time I was going through, I was knocking over cones and stuff, and I just didn't have enough speed control.
I guess there's a first time for everything. That's what makes it an adventure. we learned we've been making a huge mistake, that when you're on dirt, on these big bikes, you never ever sit down. You ride standing up.
Rawhide, I think, saved my life. I think without that training, my anxiety, my sense of panic would have been so high that at the really most dangerous spots, I don't know what would have happened if I had not had some basic skills. I'm not sure following's the goal or not the goal, but at least I made it through the course.
Does it always take this long, is your question? Well, as Romulus said to Remus, Rome was not built.
All right, guys, let's go.
Oh.
Most of the trip we'll be camping, but our pal Bart offered us a place to stay our first night out, and he's always got some good stories to tell.
Oh my gosh!
What the
Bart,
heck?
this is insane!
Bart, look at this. Oh my gosh.
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Oh my gosh.
So you guys have heard all the parasail stories. Those were the younger days when I wanted to fly.
Yeah.
Finally, it's become legitimate.
What is this? Yeah, explain.
Well, it's called a Kit Fox. It's a bush plane. It's as a matter of fact, here's a picture. That's what it looks like.
Oh, sweet.
I've actually flown that airplane.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Explain to me some of these components, like what's going on with the pedals and the...
Yeah, these are the rudder pedals, Luke. You'll see the elevator back there. It's all rigged.
Oh yeah.
That's totally all rigged.
Oh my
back
gosh.
there. And some of the wings were put together. We've just put the fabric on the wings. That's really a new thing for me. I mean, it's really,
You said
really
fabric
cool.
on the wings?
Yeah, it's fabric. Fabric.
Wow.
So most men, as they enter what you might call their mature years,
It's a little bit beyond
sort of throttle back a little bit, you know, like most guys take up golf or, right? Backgammon. I mean, Bart, where are you going to take this?
You know, it's, well, right out around those trees, I've got a 1,300-foot strip that's marked out for taking off. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, to come through, to build something like that, I mean, I can't wait to fly it.
Bart, I'm pretty sure that's not a chandelier. What's the prop?
Yeah, Dan, I call that my prop of shame. There's a story of deep shame in that, but of redemption as well, and that's why I have it. I wanted a more reliable plane, and so I actually found somebody who had re-engineered and rebuilt the platform that I was flying. They put a turbine engine on it. That's a turbine prop. We were landing at the place where they build these airplanes. Very short runway. It had been snowing. They had to plow the runway, a lot of ice and snow on it. So he says, okay, you want to get on the ground pretty quick because short runway, and then you want to go into beta, which is reverse thrust. That is a new thing in a turbine airplane. I didn't have beta reverse thrust, where the prop actually reverses and it pushes the air out and stops you very quickly. And so as I came over the numbers, I had the reaction that I had hundreds of times in my old airplane as I pulled all the power back and I hit the beta lock and went through the beta lock in the air. Went into reverse thrust. Airplane just takes a dive for the runway, and that's the prop that you see there. We careen down the runway about 1,000 feet and go into a snowdrift, and jet fuel spewing out, sparks going everywhere. We weren't hurt. We climbed out of the airplane. Gear had collapsed. The plane was a wreck, and so the next day I went to the instructor and I said, are you okay? I'm really sorry I did that. He said, yeah, I'm okay. He said, I thought we were dead. But he said, do you realize what you were doing when we were careening down the runway? I said, no. He said, you were hitting the top of the dashboard with your fist, screaming at yourself, you worthless piece of shit, you worthless piece of shit. And when I got back to the team and we started chasing that down, we found a very, very young wound in my heart of when my brother would shame me with that saying. And I had this agreement that I was this self-hatred, this self-reproach, and it came bubbling out.
Well, I think the number one thing that most people do to cover shame is they turn to their own self-contempt or they turn to contempt toward others. So contempt becomes sort of our shield, our covering. That pressure to perform, yet on the other side, I'm gonna make sure that nobody else sees, and I'm gonna hate what shows that weakness, and then I'm gonna work really, really hard. So hatred, contempt, almost a violence against ourselves, pushes us to perform, to succeed, and then when we don't, that kind of violence, that I am a shit.
Yeah,
that
right.
I think is so revelatory, what's truly there. I remember when I dropped the bike the first time on the figure eights, I was pulling that bike up. I felt pain, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was get that bike up so I can get back in line so that I can't be seen.
You see, there's always a story. Every life is a story, a rather long and complicated story. If you stop and think about it, you've lived through quite a story so far. And over the course of that story, your heart has learned many things. Some of it's good, a whole lot is not. We went out looking for adventure and beauty. Motorcycles and fly fishing through the best of Colorado. Life seems so much simpler on the road. You get into a rhythm. Rivers and aspen forests, sand dunes and the high passes. More beauty than a soul could take in. Whatever story it is you're looking for, I guarantee you it includes beauty. When everything else in the world seems to make no sense, there is beauty. It speaks of a larger story.
I am plagued with losing the fish of a lifetime. Dad and I were once driving up through Wyoming, fishing our way towards Washington, and we stopped on the Yellowstone River in Montana. And we've been casting into this beautiful foggy morning and had some small hookups. And we came to this brown bank, this overhanging grasses hanging into the water, and cast, and a nose the size of a human face came and just gulped the fly. Everything was still, and then line started going out. And you just see this dorsal fin rise out of the water. And so he's pulling, and I just go to give him a little more of the heel of the rod, and suddenly the fly is just sailing at me through the air, spatted at me, and swam away, and everything was awful.
Buddy.
Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is to find a story that tells you about your story. And for me, it was the fly fishing story, the movie, the book, A River Runs Through It. And because my story is, that was my one connecting place with my dad. He was a traveling salesman. He was a busy guy. He was gone a lot on the road. But when he came home, we would fish. That was the one place I had him. But then his life, he just hit a number of collisions. He had cancer. He had a stroke, and we never fished again. And kind of lost my dad in all that. And I went and saw A River Runs Through It, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm weeping. And I couldn't have told you why at the time. It was a story that was explaining my story. And at the end of the movie, the main character, Norman, it's his story, is in the river. He's an old man. He's fishing by himself. And he says, now all those that I loved but did not understand in my youth are gone. But I still reach out to them. Credits are rolling. I'm weeping. Stace is, what is this? I couldn't connect that until a couple months after that. I had gone out fishing, and see, the thing is, I started fishing alone, right? And I fished for years alone. And I was alone on the river. And I came home, and I was upset. And I was pacing back and forth in the kitchen, and I was upset. And Stacey's like, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. Because it wasn't that I had had a bad day fishing and anything. I said, I don't know, I'm just kind of thing. And then out of my mouth came these words, I'll never find him out there. I had no idea that all those years I was looking for my father on the river.
G.K. Chesterton said, with every step of our lives, we enter into the middle of some story we will probably misunderstand. The key to the riddle of our lives is often back in our own story. But if you never unpack this stuff, it pins your heart down.
That's beautiful along here, that river.
Yeah, this pass is just incredible. All right, guys, pulling over.
Hey, you guys, talk about small characters on a large landscape, right?
Beauty. Beauty overcomes fear. It really does. To be continued.
I just thought of this cool line, you guys. Hey, beauty overcomes fear. Huh? How about that?
We're spending a lot of time in the saddle. Long days, and the miles roll by. Lots of time to think about the kind of story we're looking for. Lots of time to think about the kind of story we're living back home. We chose a route that combined the best dirt and the best asphalt riding in Colorado. It's been a good test of the skills we learned, but we all know the real test is days ahead when we hit the high backcountry. Meanwhile, we're loving the mountain passes and the gorgeous winding highways. I've lived in Colorado for more than 20 years, and I never knew how diverse it really is.
Morgan and Alex had told us that there's a slot canyon coming up. So the road starts dipping down and everybody pulls over. And I'm in the front. I look forward and I see just this black head sticking around the fence looking up the road. I look back and try to give everybody the eyes, like, is anybody else seeing this?
I come around this corner and Sam has stopped about 100 yards ahead at a fence line. And then this enormous bull comes out of the bushes and turns and faces Sam and is not moving. So it looked like Sam was about to be killed by a bull.
He's not going anywhere. He has no ability to go anywhere. He's in a slot canyon. Blaine rolls up next to me, Padre rolls up next to me. He's still not going anywhere. He's still just panting at us, pissed, honking, revving. Eventually, he starts turning around. We end up slowly chasing, more like nursing, this bull all the way through the slot canyon. Anytime we would get too close to him, he'd stop and kind of look over his shoulder at you. We'd back off, and then he'd keep going a bit. It was awesome.
It's a cattle drive. Watch out. Woo, got a bull on my tail. You guys, come on, this is uncool. There you go. Yeah, this is the last time I'll have signal. Cannot wait to
As the
see
days roll by, we all feel the empty places left by our loved ones back home.
Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Whatever story it is we live in the day-to-day, love is a big part of what makes those stories worth living.
Texas Hold'em Ace as well.
Yep. So you get 2 cards.
Ace high starts betting.
Oh, pair of aces starts the betting.
Oh yeah.
$5.
I'll call that. I'll raise you 5.
No.
Shoot.
All right, what do you got, big boy?
4 queens.
Oh, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, come to Papa.
There it is.
It's crazy, Luke, that you are getting married next summer.
I know, it's wild. Even now, just getting my head wrapped around the idea.
Does it not feel like the great unknown?
It is very much so the great unknown. And lucky enough that I've been able to watch you two step into that season and go through that. So I have some examples, which is really nice. But I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right? How did you know? How did you know that she was the one?
First, I knew because I could not imagine a future that she was not a part of it. Nor could I have desires that were as rich as the desires I have that she is in.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, we didn't call anything. 5?
2 cards. And you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
use them.
Yeah.
That, just you.
Yep. $10.
25.
30.
All right, I better.
What do you got?
2 paired. 4s and 2s.
Whoa, 4s and 2s. At the center of every person's story is the search for love, right? I mean, it might look like the search for, success, the search for praise or validation, affirmation, still the search for love. Or it can look like defensiveness and isolation and, I don't need anything or anyone. It's still defined by love. You're just pushing against it, right? Yeah. Love is the center of the story, every person's story.
When I think about love, I think it's really made up of these 2 core components. We were meant for honor, to be honored, to be respected, and we were meant to be delighted in. And so wherever you experience honor and delight, you'll feel loved. But so often, most of us know that what delight comes, it's often based on what we've done, whether we performed well enough. Honor often has to cause us to kind of hide what we know is not really lovely inside of us. So we're in that bind. We want love, We're afraid, we don't want to risk, but we're meant for delight and honor. So with that, we're in this bind with love. Do we give? Do we receive? Do we allow it to grow? And so often we just take the tragic, safe road instead of opening our heart to what we were really meant for.
The biggest risk we ever take is the risk to love and to be loved. That's the biggest risk because it's the deepest desire. I mean, this is the core of our being. We live in a love story set in a world at war. Love is the core, right? And the war is always against love, right?
We'll stay in.
Really? You're gonna be throwing darts.
Threes are
Yeah,
wild.
buddy.
So your aces, right.
Awesome.
So, as we think about our story of love, the way it's shaped us, the way we're living now toward love or away from love, it becomes really clear that the biggest risk we ever take is loving and receiving love, and especially receiving unconditional love. And it is bigger than any risk we've taken on this trip so far, and any risk we will take, right? Here we go, last card.
I'm all in.
Come on. Nice. Nice. Yeah, you are.
Trip 5.
And now here is our dilemma. If the world was only filled with love and beauty, we wouldn't find it so hard to believe a good and kind hand was behind all this. But then there is suffering, loss, and heartache. Pain comes slamming into our lives, and this is where we get really confused about what kind of story we are living in.
So, this is the canyon that my best friend was killed in 17 years ago on a trip just like this.
Brent was my closest friend. We spent years together backpacking, fly fishing, a lot of adventures. He was killed in a climbing accident on a trip we were leading.
That kind of thing can really mess up your understanding of the story that you think you're living in if you don't have something to help you interpret it.
This was the core of my fear about our adventure. I felt like it would happen again, that this was going to be my story too, or that it would happen to my sons. You see, it's the pain and fear in our lives that cause us to stay in small stories, safe stories, that give us just a taste of what we were meant for. So we wanted to talk to our friend Jim down by the New Mexico border. He's done a lot of work over the years with horses and how they help to heal trauma.
You know, early on, yeah, I had a huck fin childhood, like moving from the city as an early young kid to a ranch style life, you know, and just having like freedom, like this place, just being able to do anything. And that was beautiful. Yeah. That was beautiful for the time until things change, you know, in my home life and with what woundedness that, you know, came upon me.
Right. I remember you saying once that as a boy, horses were safer than people.
I think the thing that helped me the most to get into them was I actually understood where they were operating from. Even at an early age, I think I understood what fear was, you know, and even at that age, you know, 6, 7 years old, my mom would come out to the barn and find me curled up on top of one of our old horses, just sleeping. And that was a comfortable place for me. That was a safe place.
So something about your life opened that door to know something about fear.
Yeah, I understood where they were coming from, because you can actually be so afraid of things that you can't even speak or walk or understand. And so I think where it really came to me with the horses was they didn't really care what color hair I had or where I'd been or anything. They just took you for what you were.
There was heartache.
Yeah, disruption. A lot of disruption in my home. Some of that came, you know, in many different forms. You know, with my parents, of course, their issues where they were at that time, and then just abuse. You know, abuse coming in my life at a very early age cut things really to the quick. And so, trying to navigate that as a little boy, you know, with a very unstable circumstances in your home life, the horses were the place that I just gravitated to. That was safe. That was a safe place for me at that time. And I think at that point, I wasn't capable of that, taking that kind of risk anymore. You know, after abuse or not trusting men, period.
Well, you know, listening to your story, I feel a lot of grief, not just for you, but in many ways, my story, both of physical and emotional and sexual abuse, I just checked out, just as you put words to. I found early on that alcohol by age 10, 11 worked way better than having to feel what was inside.
Whatever your interpretation of the world is, whatever story you think explains it all, it has to reconcile beauty and suffering, love and loss.
That's a big cloud cell moving in our way, huh?
I know.
Question isn't, why is there so much suffering in the world? The real question is, why is there so much beauty? If life is an accident and mostly cruel, how do you explain beauty? The events of your life, the good and the bad, are like scenes from a movie. If you don't have the rest of the movie, you don't understand your scenes.
Hey guys, I just got to do this.
Movies are popular because they speak to the story need inside of us.
Luke, so loved that. Star Wars has been such a huge part of our growing up, the story, the mythicness. Feels like we're on Tatooine right now.
So much fun. I just love even just pretending to be a stormtrooper out here in the dunes. Like, I've been trying to make stormtrooper armor out of cardboard since I was 4. And I just remember like growing up and using lightsabers, pretending to be Jedi up and down the street.
Yeah.
So fun.
The story has just always captured our imagination.
Yeah.
What is it? Epic stories, you know, great trailers. It works. Like, it captures something in our soul.
Totally. I think it's the hugeness. Luke and I have burned hours on road trips across the country just talking about Star Wars because none of the characters are dead ends. They all open outwards, and you dig into one character and find, wait, he got that gun from that character, and that's connected to the mythic trajectory of the universe in these ways.
Okay, that line. The mythic trajectory of the universe. Like, that's it. And I think the reason that we love these things so much, the movies that we love, the stories, the novels, myths, legends, is that they are all saying one story. Like, they're all speaking to one thing, right? Yeah. There's an epic battle, you know, of good and evil, right? That has to be fought. And then there's these small characters in an epic landscape that they get to rise up, right? And they get to play some valiant role. And then at the end of all of them, some incredible restoration, right? Like the Death Star is destroyed, or, you know, at the end of Lord of the Rings, Gondor is back in its glory and the king has returned. Yeah. Like, that's the gospel. Like, that's the story that God is telling. Like, we are in story, and there's only one story, and the world just keeps retelling the same story in myth and fairy tale and poem and legend, and now, you know, the epic trilogies and those films. What we're actually describing here is there is a larger story, and we have a place in it.
Somehow we know the world is broken. We know we are. But somehow on stage or in a movie, we can somehow connect to the characters, but they also are telling something of the nature of our own story. We connect to the person because we know brokenness, but we also know that we're looking for redemption. Somehow the story itself from the brokenness is a search in some ways to see it all brought back together again. And so when that ending comes, when we know that finally restoration has occurred, I mean, our lives are given a perspective of this is what we were meant for.
And here is the incredible hope that the movies that we love, the stories that we love, the legends, the myths, they are all telling us something true about the universe. We do live in a great story. And what Jesus was trying to get across to the human race is there is meaning. You are part of something great and good, right? And heroic rescue through his life and death and resurrection. We are rescued and are now called up into a great story. Yes, there's a battle of good and evil. Just watch the news, right? Yes, you are needed. Small characters on an epic landscape. Like, we get to live in the greatest story of all.
We're looking for what we were meant for. That longing for the epic, that's a big part of why adventure has become so popular. Chasing the next big wave, the perfect powder days, looking for an epic story. But adventure isn't big enough to be your life story. You know you're living in a small story if you're the main character. And the thing is, adventure can turn on you at any moment. I think we all felt that as we turned to face what we had gotten ourselves into. The high backcountry. 2 days of really technical riding. It was the drop-offs that had us worried. One slip of a tire, one wrong move, and the fall is often 1,000 feet. I wasn't the only one who was having secret doubts.
I had a couple of concerns going into the trip. We made a last-minute change. A couple of days before leaving on the trip, we decided to add in this whole backcountry section with Hurricane Pass. And we had scouted it, and we had made the decision scouting it that it'd be better to leave this off with the level of riding ability that we had. We had made the decision, let's not do Hurricane Pass. And then a few days before the trip goes, we're looking at the percentage of dirt that we're doing. We're like, we need some more dirt. And so we make the decision to do Hurricane Pass. And so the 4 days leading up to that, I was definitely second guessing that decision and really hoping that something didn't go wrong and it would be my fault, because I said, yeah, I think we can do this.
So last night, we were lying in the tent, falling asleep. Everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden, John just says to Sam, Sam, are we wrong about the route for tomorrow? And they started talking specifics about the kind of road it was. We could go up over Fanghorn, but then there's
Beartooth.
Then there's a scree field and they'll never make it. Or we could go up over Whitehall, but
There's
still
that one dicey move that either the bike's going down or one of them's going down the mountain.
like certainly someone is gonna be in the hospital. Easy.
Seriously, just falling asleep, imagining horror after horror of what this day holds, and thinking rawhide was not enough for Beartooth.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So this is corkscrew here.
Corkscrewing that right
Oh,
here.
okay.
Right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, great.
If I had wings like Noah's dove, I'd fly the river to the one I love. Oh, fare thee well, my honey, fare thee well. I had a man who was long and tall. He moved his body like a cannonball. Fare thee well, my honey, fare thee well. One of these days, I fear it won't be long. I'll call his name and he'll be gone. Fare thee well, my honey, fare thee well.
Blaine, you're a badass, dude.
I remember the evening, the pouring rain, when I saw his heart, when I felt the pain. Fare thee well.
Oh, you guys did it!
Woo! Woo! Guys, how much is your adrenaline right now? Your hand
Look at
shaking, right?
Look at my hand.
like, woo! Because no one fell. And you're going up over boulders, and then it's a tight turn, and I'm looking up, and here's a drop off, and you guys are just climbing.
Oh, I almost ate it. I almost ate it 3 or 4 like serious times. One of them on the edge.
Oh.
I'm like, if I bite it here, I'm going all the way down that.
You guys totally killed it. That was awesome. Way to go. So Dad, this lake is the lake Berg was talking about. It's having great fly fishing. I've got a rod, Blaine's got a fly.
Poking you in the lip. That kind fisherman comes along and sets you free.
Across the valley, I hear the thunder roar. Beats the closing of our
We thought we had won. We thought the worst was behind us. But then it all began to fall apart.
I think going into this trip, I was afraid that when we finally got into the technical terrain, that some bike or that my bike would go down really hard.
Remember to get your butts back. Get your butts back. We'll give each other some space, guys, okay?
Blaine is a wilderness first responder medic. We're counting on him in case of serious injuries.
Careful on that guy. Whoa, 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 whoa.
As the trip was going on, it really changed, and there was this constant fear that somewhere around me, some bike was going to go down really hard, and we were going to have a really hurt rider. So when we were coming down Hurricane Pass, we're almost at camp, and finally starting to relax, and all of a sudden, Dan has this violent fall. He's down, his head cracks into the road. You can see he rips off part of his helmet. His pannier goes flying down, and John Dale is off his motorcycle, running to him in the ditch. I'm getting off my bike, grabbing the extra med kit, getting to Dan. So we give him a quick check, but it is really clear that some serious damage has been done to his side. But Dan has an extraordinary, legendary pain tolerance. And we touch the ribs, finally, and he just winces. You can see that he's in a ton of pain. We knew then that he was seriously injured.
But we're a long way from any hospital or 911, and there isn't any cell signal anyway. What we wouldn't find out for days is that Dan had broken and separated 3 ribs and partially collapsed a lung.
And because of that event, it wasn't only that one of the things I was afraid of had come true, it made me more afraid for the next day when the stakes would be higher because we would be on a similarly difficult road, but we would be hanging off the side of a cliff. So when Dan fell, I was convinced and terrified that someone else was going to take a really hard fall later.
And all that night in camp, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be me. I can't shake the fear that death is going to catch up with me on this trip. It isn't only heartache that assaults us. There's something darker. We began to feel the presence of darkness. We began to feel hunted. We could feel death trying to get in.
Sam was our leader, and so he was talking, and so he talked us through the first switchback, which was tough, and then the second one, and the third one, and then we came to one of the middle switchbacks.
And all I'm able to shout back to guys is, it's a mountain. It's this sheer cliff, this incline of about 10, 15 feet that's all rock.
Wait, did Sam just say that? What am I in for? And then coming around the bend and just seeing the switchback of just this vertical wall.
And everywhere you look, it's sheer, it's flat. There's nowhere that your bike's supposed to crawl over. If you were in a dune buggy, this would be no problem. But on a motorcycle, a little different. So I did what I knew to do, which was gas it, keep your arms loose, keep looking up. Your bike's gonna go where you want it to go. I hit it, it's a little bit crazy, but I'm doing okay and I get over it. I look back over my shoulder because Padre's right behind me, and I see his front tires in the air as he's going across it, and he's going off. The bike's just going straight off the ledge.
I'm okay.
With a little more speed, I would have gone down that mountain. Honestly, I don't know how hurt I was. It felt like I had done some serious internal damage. But we had miles to go to get out of the backcountry.
You just roll right down the middle of that.
Yeah, okay.
It's gonna be okay.
First emotion, seeing Padre's motorcycle like that, was first fear for Padre. Is he okay? Is he all right? What happened? And then the second emotion was fear for all of us. That sense of feeling like, can we as a group do this? Can we get off this mountain? And feeling like the answer was no, we can't.
I hate the thief of joy, right? Because the truth is, we've had a glorious day.
Yeah.
Like, it's so clearly the thief of joy.
Right.
It's so clearly trying to make it a different story than the one that it actually is. Right? The truth is, everyone's riding extraordinarily well. Especially for new at this, right?
Right.
We are not backcountry adventure motorcyclists.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
we're not pros.
We went to riding school, what, a month ago?
Yeah.
Been riding a total of 3
Let's put this in
months.
context, okay?
Right.
And we didn't want to tell you this morning, but the toughest riding on this trip, you guys now have behind you.
Father, we ask with all the holy saints that we would have power to be able to make our way down with joy.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
What I feared happened, but it didn't happen. My bike was stopped from going down the mountain. The story I thought would happen didn't. The turning point in every good story is the rescue. This is the hope of a larger story, that your story can turn out differently. The sociologist Neil Postman said that the story our age has been given is the story of accident, that the universe began by an accident, that it will all end by an accident. And as Postman says, for most people, the accidental life is not worth living. You don't want your life story to be an accident. After we prayed, we began to make our way down the mountain. Hour by hour, the darkness lifted, and it was as if a new story was opening up before us. Joy was returning. Beauty was returning.
I didn't realize that I was turning myself into a baked potato.
At least when we're moving, we can't smell ourselves.
Wow, that was great. Wow.
Whatever our story has been, whatever darkness we have known, we are all looking for redemption.
Well, I think that was a huge breakthrough in my life, huge breakthrough. And you know, I kept the prop in a different place up until just recently, and I wanted to bring it into my workshop because it was a place of deep, deep shame in my life. Now it's a place of redemption.
So in one sense, that propeller is a way of saying your brother does not continue to have the same impact in your life. That
Right.
wound does not continue to have the same power to shut you down, to hide, to in one sense have to prove. It's beautiful. Your heart to be able to hold that and see it not as a reminder of shame, but as that doorway for your heart to be redeemed. It's just glorious.
I think where it really came to me with the horses was they offer the truest part of themselves. And so, thank God, he brought me the horses instead of addiction or a bottle or whatever a person would choose to anesthetize that pain in their heart. They really were just a gift from the Father to actually help me to a better place. They were just a rescue because they never look at life like it's better a half mile down the road. It's good right now. I'm content. And so living in that, just pouring thousands of hours of time into them and them back into me, there's a story of their life impacting mine.
Because there is a larger story, there is hope. There is healing. There is redemption. God can rescue our stories. And so I'm not fishing alone anymore.
Welcome back inside the head and genius of Blaine Eldredge. We're getting ready to take off. Some people think that these particular ships are inappropriately equipped for this kind of lunar voyage to sail, like so many pentacons among the stars of Elysium.
Right, we're good to go.
Ah!
Hugging to the shoulder, and I'm shooting out. The lights a little tired, a little low, counting down to Friday night. Ain't knowing where you're going, time's just seeing where you've been. Alabama, 34 through the back door of a bank. Let it roll, rolling on again, let it roll. In heaven knows she been told.
We really began to savor the last few days, the last couple hundred miles. I think all of us were feeling like we never wanted it to end.
On this motorcycle trip, each day felt like 4. The amount of time was stretched out, and that was because it wasn't just a group of buddies riding motorcycles for a week of camping. There were so many other things going on with the headsets and technology, with needing to do things again for the filming, with the spiritual aspects, with needing to sit down and be honest and vulnerable. There were so many different layers that each day felt like 4, and 8 days felt like a month. It was really difficult.
The cumulative effect of the stress of the heights and of the other riders and of guys dropping bikes and carrying 2 med kits all the time, trying to be ready for something that might happen. I think the mental stress combined with the physical exhaustion, I'm just empty.
That is the temperature right here. It's 100 degrees ambient temperature.
We're off? Again?
I loved that last 45 minutes. Like that,
glorious.
I had so much joy again.
Myself, yeah.
30 minutes left on dirt for the whole 1,000 miles, guys. What are you looking forward to tonight at the ranch?
A bed, like a real bed.
I'm really looking forward to a shower. to get clean.
Oh my
gosh,
gosh,
the
the shower,
accumulative sweat and dirt and grime.
I know I want to see Becky, that's number one, but if I didn't take a shower beforehand, there'd be no contact, emotionally or otherwise. The ride was phenomenal. I wouldn't trade it for a million. But I think the thing that I'm going to feel the loss is not to wake up in the morning and see your faces. The companionship has been one of the sweetest parts of this trip.
Yeah, as I got out of my tent this morning and saw the motorcycles sitting there in front of the rocks, it struck me. Like, I'm sure I'll go on other trips, but it won't be a trip quite like this with men like this.
Living in a larger story means living with a sense of anticipation. How will your story end?
Hey guys, the gals are preparing a party for us tonight.
That's awesome. I cannot wait to see Amy. Oh.
I'm sorry, Luke, someday.
They were talking about how excited they were to see their wives and how much they were anticipating it. And the entire time I was just bitter and envious. And so whenever any person made a comment about how excited they were, I would make a sarcastic comment or be grudgy or just scoff.
Luke doesn't know that we've flown in his fiancée Olivia as a surprise. For a story to be really good, it needs to be headed to a wonderful ending. Without that, you're just stuck in the journey forever.
You made it!
And as you can tell,
You got a good spill?
covered in mud.
Yeah, I am too now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when we pulled in to the ranch and Olivia was there, I almost dropped my motorcycle from the shock and surprise.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Hey! Hey!
And then it was joy and delight, feeling like I did when I was a little boy on Christmas morning.
Look at his face!
Oh my gosh.
They're so cute. So I'm gonna keep it just like that.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
I like it.
Yeah,
It
it's
makes
awesome.
it better.
Mr. Charlie, how are you, pumpkin?
Yeah, so I've been living in this gear for the past 8 days.
You're wearing new clothes
I do.
today.
I smell terrible.
Amen. The toast is to our valiant women.
Yes.
Holding us up from afar. For your faith, for your hope, for your love. Thank you. Cheers, friends. Cheers.
So JD, Luke, Sam, Blaine. No, they go up Targan's Fang. They'd have to deal with the Eagles. Wide-eyed.
A really good celebration remembers the losses and the hardships and savors the victories.
So, Dan is doing the technical stuff. He asks JD and goes, wow, is this kind of like what engineers gonna be like?
Silent.
You know, this is good practice.
Same road, we're kind of flying, we're kind of getting the hang of these things. I lay a bike down, and all of a sudden we hear Blaine go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm okay, I got it, I'm good.
So after that, when we arrived to Bart's, fantastic story of, we had a thing called tannerite, which is an explosive that explodes at when it's impacted by a high velocity bullet. And when we were doing this, Bart was shooting this gun, but he wouldn't hit it in the first couple shots. And so the anticipation of bang, nothing, bang, nothing. But when it went, oh my gosh, explodes into color.
He hits a load of tannerite and he sends a blue barrel 100 feet into the air. Poof, poof, and this barrel is up in the air, and like we're like hiding behind like tractors and stuff.
Let's be clear, some of that shrapnel was hitting pretty close to us.
A story is only as good as its ending. What are some of your favorite endings to stories that you love? Movies, fairy tales? I'd love to hear a couple.
For me, I read The Lord of the Rings this year, and the ending in the book to that is incredible. As Frodo, who has endured so much suffering on behalf of others, is going to the Grey Havens, going to a second Eden, and going there, the last lines of the entire series is, he heard the sound of singing voices and a landscape under a swift sunrise. Yeah.
So I really love the Return of the Jedi ending because they're all celebrating with the Ewoks.
Right?
And like the whole like Yoda and Anakin and are all back in there and
they're back.
And it's a big party.
Right?
In a tree house.
Right.
Pretty great.
So, one of my favorite endings is the musical Les Mis.
Oh, come on.
When everyone who has gone before, who's died, is back together and they're singing the anthem. And it's just such an amazing picture.
It's so obvious that we are made for restoration. I mean, the endings speak of the fact that every really good ending has something of evil being addressed and vanquished. And something about those who were divided being brought back together again. And that complexity of justice and mercy and goodness really is the core of the sweet desire every one of us has when all things are put well and good again.
Something I'm really looking forward to is nothing in between me and any person. Like no misunderstanding. I become aware in places where I'm living in a little bit of fear, and fear of blowing it and losing relationship, or fear of not being understood, and to know that's all going to be swept away, and we will know and be known, and it will be good. Yeah.
For me, the hope that I have is the promise that everything that I have lost will be returned.
Nothing is lost, and that there are no goodbyes.
Yes.
You don't lose anything, and you never have to deal with any parting.
That's just huge. That's huge, because as we were driving in, we were a couple hours yet from the end of the trip, 1,000 miles, and so much in 8 days. I was just tearing up. I didn't want it to end. I hate it that things end. I hate goodbyes, right? I hate the ending of things.
Yeah, talking about this, I want to read something. One of my favorite books, the last section of the last chapter of the last Chronicle of Narnia. And for us, this is the end of all the stories. And we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now, at last, they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before.
This life we're living is partial at best. Good times always come to an end. Every small story comes to an end. And though our age has become cynical, deep in our hearts, every person longs for the happily ever after. Are you living with a sense of anticipation? What are you looking forward to? How do you want your story to end? What if it doesn't have to?
Can you hear them calling? Oh, the clearest winds blow. We're playing hard for keeps, we've got visions and dreams. You gotta get up, it's time to go. Headed north for the border, where my heart grows tender. With the first sign of light, we'll be well out of sight. I'll be the first to hit the road. Don't you forget what you've come for. Don't you forget where you've been. This road is long. If you hold on, it'll take you back. Father told me, said I've known many good men. They sort of lose their spark, they forget who they are. They kind of fade out towards the end. My biggest fear, let me tell you, is that I'll end up just like them. Come on. It's not that I lose my sight or the sense of what's right. It's that I go down